Hey everyone, Bandit here. Welcome back to the Bandit Flight Simmer channel. And today we're back in the Diamond DA62. I just want to do a quick video on the latest sim update and the NXi update to version 0.8.0. So we're here in the Diamond in Boston, and we're going to do a quick flight to Martha's Vineyard, which is just an island south of Cape Cod, and just go over some of the new features on the NXi and see how the sim update is performing. I haven't had any issues with the update so far. All the mods seem to be working pretty well, so it's been a pretty good update as far as updates go. Here's a quick route. We're just going to take off out of Boston here on the BOSOX departure and direct to Martha's Vineyard VOR, and then shoot an approach into Martha's Vineyard and go over some of the new features on the G1000 NXi mod. So without further ado, let's hop in the cockpit, and we're already started up, ready to go on runway 33 left here in Boston, and we'll go over some of the features before we take off, and then we'll cover the rest in the air. Okay, we're here in the cockpit, and I'm just going to zoom in on the MFD here. And I have the basic flight plan loaded from Boston to Martha's Vineyard. So I'll just bring that up to show you. So we have Boston, Martha's Vineyard VOR, and Martha's Vineyard Airport. So the first feature we'll look at is if I select the cursor in the flight plan, and we move the cursor over an airport. And if it's selected over an airport, you see now selected waypoint weather. So we have Boston METAR here. So winds, METAR is at today's the 20th of October at 12:45 Zulu. Winds 280 at 9 knots, 10 miles. Few 14,000, few 25,000, 16 degrees, 2.9. Altimeter is 29er. So that's really handy to have. And if we cursor down to Martha's Vineyard, we'll get Martha's Vineyard weather. And there we go, the METAR for Martha's Vineyard. So nice day for flying down in Boston to Cape Cod. Another feature on the NXi is the auto zoom route feature. So as I cursor through waypoints, you see on the left, so if I range out here, now as I cursor through to MVY, so I'll move the cursor down to MVY, you'll see it's going to show MVY on the airport. So it's going to zoom in, auto zoom, and it's going to display the various route segments for the flight. So there we go. So that's a new feature. And another thing we can do, if I get rid of the flight plan here, is we can now use the cursor button here. So we can actually, so when I engage the cursor, push the button in, and you'll see a flashing cursor on the screen here, and you'll see this display up here. And this shows, it highlights on top of the aircraft first, and then as we move the cursor, so I just drag the cursor around the screen here, and you'll see it will move around, and it'll show bearing and range and lat long from the aircraft. And if I want to cursor down and keep going down to my flight plan here, it's kind of hard to use this with the mouse, but it is usable, and you can range out, and you can cursor down and see what it is, what the route looks like at your airport. So we'll just keep cursoring down here. Kind of tricky to use. There we go. So now we're over MVY. So once we have an approach loaded in, you can actually see the approach here and get a good view of it. And then you can range in closer to where the cursor is, and then we can see the layout of the approach after we have it loaded. So that's a nice handy feature, just to take a good look at your route there. And then when we hit the button again to get rid of it. It just goes back and centers on the airplane. So that's another feature of the G1000 here. Okay, so let's load up a departure and then we'll get up on our way and we'll start looking at some of the other features. So we'll just go to the procedure, we'll get the departure, and it is going to be the SOX 5 off of 33 left, and we'll load that in, and then you can see that loads up nicely, so that's ready to go. So let's get in the air and then we'll get en route and then we'll start looking at some of the other features. I've just flight planned 7,000 feet. So we'll get pre-takeoff check and we'll get up on our way. Okay, so pre-takeoff check, we got the flaps are set for takeoff, pumps are on, pitot heat's on, altimeter is set to 989er. We got 7,000 feet set. I got runway heading set, and we're GPS is set up for intercepting our track there. Got a landing light on, strobe lights on. Everything looks good. I think we're all ready to go. So we'll release the parking brake, apply full power. And again, I'm using the standard DA62X mod, and that seems to be working fine. There's 80 knots. Positive rate, gears up. Speed's good, flaps up. Just trim the aircraft up. Going for about 110 knots. Make sure we get our track going here. Above 400 feet, I'll engage the autopilot. Go flight level change and nav. Okay, so autopilot's engaged, GPS, flight level change 110 knots. Bring the power back for 95% for our climb. And we're just intercepting our nav track. And I'll just range in on that. Just see how that's looking. There we go. So everything looks good. Get a post takeoff check. Gear is up, flaps are up. Got our boost pumps off. Leave the landing light on, and power is set for the climb. T's and P's are all looking good. So we'll continue out on the climb here. So another couple of features. We'll take a look at the PFD here while we're climbing out, and you'll see it has a flight path vector now. So the flight path vector basically shows where the aircraft is tracking, and it accounts for the wind and everything. So you'll see, because we have a little crosswind, it's just offset a little bit to the left. Even though our climb attitude is 10 degrees, where our flight path vector is not quite as high as that. It's pretty close though. Once we level off, it should come down to the horizon line here. And yeah, so that's a handy feature to have, especially when you're doing visual approaches. You can put the flight path vector right on the button of the runway, and a very useful little tool to have. So that's now working in the sim. And another thing that they have is on the horizon line, they have your heading indications. So you'll see 330 right here, and that's in the PFD options. You go to SVCT and you got heading labels, so you can turn heading labels off and on, and it's by default on. So it just gives you another reference for heading in the PFD here. So that's another feature they've added. So we'll continue the climb. We're tracking nicely on the departure here. We'll level off and we'll get set up for the approach into Martha's Vineyard, and we'll go over the main feature, which you're going to see in the approach, is the missed approach is now included in the approaches. So once we get leveled off, I'll check in with you a little bit. We'll be leveled off en route to Martha's Vineyard, and we'll get set up and we'll go over some of those new features. See you in a few minutes. Okay, we're leveled off at 7,000 feet, and we're tracking still out on the departure here. We got a wicked crosswind, 44 knots, and you can see the flight path vector is right over to the left here. So we're actually flying a heading of 265, but we're actually tracking about 250. So the flight path vector is hidden behind here. There you can see it now. So that shows our actual track, and we're level now, so it's pretty much on the horizon. So that's a useful tool for seeing your drift straight ahead of you, especially when you're on approach. You can kind of assess how much crosswind effect you're having. Also with the range function on the insert map here, so we have the insert map here, we can use the range function as well, but we can also use the pan function as well. So I can pan the cursor around the map here and pan this map as well if you want to. So it works just like the MFD, same thing. And then you just select the button and hit it, and it goes back, centers the aircraft back on the insert map here. So that function works on here as well. If going to center the heading bug, and now we'll I think we'll get set up for the approach as we continue southbound to Martha's Vineyard here. So you may have noticed the buttons highlighting blue here. I've set that up in the sim. That's under settings here. You set up, there's a legacy mode for using your cursor and a mouse mode, or lock mode. This is the lock mode, and it highlights the button, and it's more effective for using the range cursoring here. Now the only thing is, to select something, you have to left click it and then right click it while you hold the left mouse button down to actually select it, and then you can use the right button to cursor around. With the right, just hold the right button on your mouse down to move the cursor around, and then to deselect it, you just select it and then right click as you have the left click held down, and then it deselects the button. So it takes a little bit of getting used to. Other than that, it just highlights a button, and then you just left click a button, like if you want to action it just like you did before. So it does operate a little bit differently, but it works. It's more effective for using the range button. With the legacy mode, the range is really slow to use. You kind of have to hold your mouse on. You see an up arrow showing up, and then you kind of have to hold your mouse, but it moves really slowly. So anyway, this is a little more effective, so I'm just trying it out here to see how it works, and so far it works pretty good. I'm just getting used to it though. Okay, so let's look at the approach setup and the options for the approach. Okay, so we're here on the MFD, and I'm going to go up to the procedure page and select approach. And when you look through the approaches now, you'll see they actually list beside the approach for the RNAV approaches LPV. And you're going to get different options here based on what's available at the airport. So in this case, all these approaches are LPV approaches. If they're LNAV VNAV approaches, it's going to say LNAV plus V here. Or if they're just RNAV approaches, it's just going to be an RNAV approach, which means you have to do step down altitudes, step downs instead of flying a glide path. So you might have different approach options available. So in this case, we are going to plan the RNAV 33. So the RNAV 33 LPV is available. If LPV wasn't available, all you would see is LNAV plus V. And if LNAV was only available, then you just see the RNAV approach. So you'll see different options in here. Now I did notice a conflict. I had Navigraph data installed, and I had to unselect Navigraph data, or uninstall Navigraph data in order to get these to show up properly. So Navigraph's going to have to update their database for this to show up properly. I'll wait a few days and see if Navigraph has an update, and then I'll reinstall the Navigraph data. But you need the stock data with the sim to have these different RNAV type approaches show up. So let's select the RNAV 33, and we are going to do it via Galaxy. And it has a course reversal built in, so it's just giving us a notification there's a course reversal. So we'll select yes. We'll put in our minimums of, since we're doing the LPV, of 300, we'll round it up to 320 feet. I'll just check the waypoints. We have Galaxy, the hold, which is the course reversal, and then yeah, that looks good. Edie Ho is there. Runway. Now you'll see the missed approach. So runway 33, missed approach, and the missed approach is climb to 1,400 feet, then left turn 2,000 to bent, and then that has a hold at bent for the holding. So that's the missed approach holding point. So that's all coded in there. So now we can load that. And if we go back to the flight plan, so we're just tracking into SOX, then we go to MVY, and then we go down to the airport, and we see now the approach loaded in here. So basically we can cursor through all the waypoints in the approach, goes through Galaxy, it's got the hold, you can see the hold, and we can kind of range in on that just to see it a little bit better. So we can see, so it's going to go from, we're going to go from the VOR to Galaxy, do the course reversal with the hold, come in and shoot the approach, and now you can see the missed approach as well. So it's got the missed approach and the hold at the missed approach. So everything is displayed there, and it's a nice way to go through your procedure to see if everything looks okay. So you see all the waypoints, it just cycles through them all. And there we go. So that's the flight plan. So that all looks good. And we're still tracking inbound to SOX right now, and then we're off from SOX to MVY for the start of the approach. So we haven't activated the approach yet, so we're still en route. And you can see now also the altitude is coded at 2,000, and we have our top of descent. If I range out a little bit here, our top of descent is set for doing the approach, so that's ready to go as well. So let's go over the approach briefing and what we can expect to see as we do the approach here. Okay, here's the approach chart for the RNAV 33 in Martha's Vineyard. And we're coming in over top of the field at the VOR. And then from the VOR, we are going to start the approach. So once we go over the VOR, the flight plan is going to have us go into Galaxy here, and then we'll activate the approach. And then from there, we'll go into the course reversal. So from Galaxy, we'll do the hold in lieu of a procedure turn. So I think we're going to track, probably do an offset and come back in for the approach, or we could be doing the reverse. I'm not sure how the sim is going to have it set up here. And then we'll come back inbound. So if we brief the approach, we're going to have a course of 326 as our final. We're going to cross the FAF at 1,500 feet down to minimums of 316 feet with a touchdown zone elevation of 66 feet. So there's all our waypoints. So what we're going to do when we start our descent, we're going to intercept the glide path. So I'm going to put 1,500 in, and then we'll use VNAV, and then we'll activate the approach once we're inbound to Galaxy, and then we'll intercept the glide slope and go down to our glide slope minimums. Now the missed approach is going to be climb to 1,400 feet, then a left turn, 2,000 direct bent and hold is published. So you can see the left turn, direct bent, and then the published hold here is inbound, right-hand turns, 280, 4-mile legs. So we'll see how it does with that. So we should come in there. It's probably going to do a parallel entry and then intercept the track and then come back and then get established in the hold. So we'll see how that works out. Min safe altitude is 2,100 feet if we need it, but we're just going to follow the altitudes for the approach, for the course reversal at 2,000 feet, and then we can descend down to 1,500 feet. Okay, so that's everything for the approach. That's all loaded in, ready to go. And one thing I'll point out here too for the flight plan. So you can call up the weather again. So if you want to look at the weather, you just select your cursor and you can cursor down to KMVY. We can see KMVY and the weather there, 31013. So that's good for runway 33, 10 miles, 19 degrees, 2991. So we can probably set our altimeter now since we're probably close to halfway. So we'll 2991. And yeah, so the weather looks pretty good. But one thing I'll point out, if you go back up to Boston, once you load in a departure, for some reason the weather doesn't show up anymore. So I'm just going to get rid of that radio. So we'll get rid of that. So yeah, for some reason, after you load in a departure, the weather doesn't show up anymore. So if you want to check the weather for your departure airport, make sure you cursor over it before you load up a departure. Okay, so I will check in with you when we get close to the top of descent, and then we'll go through the initial portion of the approach. I'll see you in a few minutes. Just a quick outside view here. So we're flying, leaving the mainland. There's Cape Cod, heads up in that direction there. And this is Martha's Vineyard, so it's a nice island just off the coast of Cape Cod. And Nantucket, I believe, is the other island just up here. So we're going to be heading to an airport just over in this area here, just off of Martha's Vineyard. So beautiful day on the east coast here. I think that's Providence, Rhode Island there. Yeah, I've had no real issues with the sim. Also, I did have those jaggies showing up, and I did find a fix for that. Although I had to lower some settings, so I'll just show if anybody has that issue. I will just hop out and under General Options, and I had to reduce the render scaling down. I had it at 125. I had to reduce it down to 100 to fix that problem. Also, for that, under accessibility for the cockpit interface system, I switched from legacy to lock, and that's what changes your mouse control. So I'm just using lock mode for now to get better use of that pan feature, and we'll see how that goes in the future. But for now, I will discard those changes because I didn't change anything, and we'll just get back to the flight. So anyway, I'll check in with you again as we get a little closer to our top of descent. Okay, we're just coming up to our top of descent, and if you remember, if you go to the flight plan, you can see your active VNAV profile, and you can see our top of descents in 18 seconds. So I'm going to select the altitude to 2,000 feet and engage VNAV. And you see VNAV path is active or armed, and we hit the top of descent. We should start our descent down to 2,000 feet, which is the altitude for the course reversal. So there we go. We've intercepted our path. VNAV path is active. I'll bring some power back so we don't get too fast here. And off we go on our descent, and we'll level off at 2,000, and then we'll fly the course reversal at 2,000 feet. Once we go by, so I'll just close the flight plan here. Once we go by the VOR-MVY, we should automatically track to Galaxy, I guess, and then I'll activate the approach once we're inbound to Galaxy. Because if I activate the approach now, it's going to go direct to Galaxy, so I don't want to do that. I want to stay on that track there. Okay, so I'll check in with you after we make the turn here, and we'll activate the approach. Okay, we're on our inbound track to Galaxy here, and I haven't activated the approach yet. We're still on our VNAV path here, so let's activate the approach. So if I go to procedure, and automatically it has activate the approach, so if I hit enter, then it should keep that track straight ahead to Galaxy, and the path stays active. Everything looks pretty good. So now we should be able to do the entire approach. So we get to Galaxy, we're going to do the course reversal. So I'm assuming it's going to hit Galaxy, it's going to make the left turn and then come back in for the course reversal, which is basically the same as doing a hold entry coming from this direction. So you're doing an offset hold entry to come back in. You can do a parallel entry too. You can go either way when you're coming straight in like this. I'm assuming the plane is going to go left. So once we get to Galaxy, let's see what it does. So we're just coming up. We're going to level off at 2,000 feet for the course reversal. So I'll see you there in a few minutes. Okay, we're just leveling off at 2,000 feet, just coming up the Galaxy here. And I'm going to add some power to keep the speed up. And yeah, you can see it starting the course reversal. So it's going to do the offset entry. And it's going to fly a 45-degree offset outbound for about a minute and then turn back inbound and intercept our inbound track. So I got the power set. I'll set it at about 80, keep the speed up. And that looks good. And we're at 2,000 feet and we're still 2,000 feet. Our next altitude will be 1,500 feet for coming inbound. Once we get inbound, I'll set that, and then we'll engage VNAV again and arm the approach. Let's talk about the missed approach. So what's going to happen in the missed approach? So if I bring up the chart again here, I'll just review it. So when we hit the missed approach point, which is at the runway 33 here, so when I'm hit minimums and I decide to go around, I'm going to hit toga. And normally when I hit toga, it just goes to a pitch mode and a roll mode. So it just maintains a straight ahead on a and sets a pitch mode for the climb. But now when I hit toga, when we have the missed approach in the system, it's going to keep tracking the GPS. It's going to go to a pitch mode for the missed approach so that we can start climbing away. But it'll keep tracking the GPS. The autopilot will stay engaged, and then we'll track the GPS. Then what's going to happen is we're going to continue tracking inbound on the GPS till we hit the missed approach point. Once we hit the missed approach point, you're going to see it switch into missed approach, but it's going to go suspend. So it's going to keep tracking straight ahead. Now, if I want to activate the missed approach, what I'm going to have to do is you're going to see suspend show up here. I'm going to have to hit suspend, and then it'll jump into the missed approach mode. You can also go to menu. And sorry, not menu over here. You can go, if you go to menu over here, you'll get, when you're in procedure, you'll get an option up here, sorry, under procedure to activate the missed approach. So you could activate the missed approach from here. The easiest way to do it is just hit the suspend button. And then it will start tracking the missed approach, and then it'll stay in pitch mode and it'll continue to track the GPS with the autopilot engaged. So we need to make sure we set our missed approach altitude before we get there, and then we're good to go for the missed approach. So anyway, that's how it's going to work. So we'll see that when we get a little closer to the missed approach point. So we'll just continue the reversal here. Once we get close to Galaxy here, I'll check in with you again, and we'll continue down to VNAV and arm the approach. So I'll see you there in a few minutes. It's doing a good job on the course reversal. Okay, we're inbound to Galaxy, and once we hit Galaxy, we can go down to 1,500 feet. So just looking at the chart again here, we cross Galaxy down to 1,500, and then we're going to intercept a glide path. So what I'm going to do is set 1,500 feet in my altitude selector, engage VNAV so we can VNAV down to that altitude, and then I'll also arm the approach so we can intercept the glide path. So I'll also put on my landing light, get my boost pumps on. Put in the altitude of 1,500 feet, and I'll engage VNAV. So VNAV is armed, and I'll also arm the approach. And then we should VNAV cross Galaxy. We should see 1,500 feet show up here for our target altitude, and we should engage the VNAV descent down to cross the next fix at 1,500 feet. And at that point, some point prior to that, we should also switch over to the glide path. Okay, so let's see how that works out. So we're coming up to Galaxy here. We're still at Galaxy, we're still 11 miles back, so I'm just not going to get the gear quite yet. I'm going to get my speed back down a little bit here. So there's Galaxy, and you can see our target altitude of 1,500 feet and our top of descent and bottom of descent for the next fix. And so V path is still armed and glide path is still armed, and we're on our way in. Should see the airport just up here off the nose. Okay, so we got another minute or two to get to the top of descent, so I'll check in with you as we get closer to there. We're almost at the top of descent. You can see the descent glide path is coming in, and there's our target vertical speed. So V path is now engaged again, and we're starting our descent. I'm going to bring back the power a little bit, and we also went right to glide path because we were close enough to the glide path there. So that is now active. So I'll bring the power back. I'll get my gear down. And once we're below 136, I will get the first notch of flap. So we're now on the final portion of the approach. Our barrel mins are set, altimeter is set. Speed is good. I'll get approach flap, and we'll start slowing down to about 110 knots. So now we're coming up. We've got glide path active here, so I want to make sure that I put in my missed approach altitude now. So 2,000 feet. And now we're just going to fly the final portion of the approach. We'll start bringing the speed back a little bit more. And now you can see, because it's an LPV approach, and we selected LPV, so we have GPS and where LPV is active, so now we know we're good for continuing to the LPV minimums. If it said LNAV plus V, then we would only be able to use the LNAV VNAV minimums, which are about 40 feet higher, or 30 feet higher in this case. So that will determine what minimums you can shoot this approach at. So speed still coming back. Approach is looking good. So gears down, flaps are at an approach or takeoff approach right now. Landing lights on. This approach altitude is set. I'm going to center my runway heading just in case we need it for something. And everything looks good. You can see the flight path vector shows us basically aiming at the button of the runway here. So that's exactly where we want to be going. You can see the runway straight ahead. So speed's coming back. And again, I'll just refresh the missed approach, so it's climb straight ahead to 1,400 feet, which you can see coded here, and then a left turn direct to the bent intersection. So there's our minimum starting to come up. So we're going to pretend here that for some reason we can't land. There's an aircraft on the runway, or maybe the weather was bad. In this case, the weather is nice, but could be lots of reasons for having to do a missed approach. So we're 100 above. And there's minimums, so we have to go around. So I hit toga, full power, positive rate, gears up, speed is good, flaps up. So now you see the autopilot is still engaged. We're still tracking the GPS. Because I hit toga, it should go to a pitch mode here. And it probably won't show that till we hit the runway, but that's looking good. And then, so we haven't hit the missed approach waypoint yet, but we're still climbing here nicely. And we hit the missed approach waypoint, and then you see a suspend. So if I hit suspend, it should now activate the missed approach. So we're through 1,000 feet. So now it goes into pitch mode, autopilot, and it's tracking the GPS. Altitude is armed, so we're going to level off at 2,000 feet. So at 1,400 feet, you should start to see it make the left turn. So I'm not even going to change to flight level change. It's still climbing nicely in pitch mode. There's at 1,400 feet. We start making our left turn direct to the bent intersection. I'll put climb power in, 95. So we'll do gear is up, flaps are up, climb power is set, and post takeoff check is good. Shut our pumps off as well. Keep the landing light on. So we're leveling off at 2,000 feet, heading to the bent intersection. And I'll start bringing the power back. Keep it about 150. And off we go to the bent intersection, missed approach. So that's 9 miles away, so we'll keep tracking that. So our post takeoff check is good. We're level at 2,000 and we're tracking to bent. So it's really nice having these missed approaches in there, especially the hold, because quite often at these small airports you're going to have to probably do the hold till you get set up for another approach. And we'll just go through that procedure here in a few minutes when we get closer to the hold. So It's really nice having these missed approaches in there, especially when you have complicated ones. A lot of missed approaches, like I did in my last Baron video, where they're just straight ahead. You got time, you can just fly runway heading until you can get set up, tune in a VOR, whatever you need for the missed approach. But when you have these complicated missed approaches with turns and different intersections and stuff like that, it's really nice having them all built into the NXi here, so it's all ready to go. You don't have to do anything. So anyway, that's a transition to the missed approach. So once we get closer to bent, I will come back with you and we'll go through the hold entry. You can see the hold entry set up here, and then it's going to transition to the hold. So I'll see you as we get closer to bent. Okay, we're just coming up to bent. And if I go over to the MFD here, you'll see the hold entry is set up, so it's going to be parallel entry. So we're going to make a left turn, parallel the outbound track for a minute, and then come back inbound to intercept the hold track, which is right-hand turns. And this one is 4-mile fixes, so that's why the hold entry is shorter than the hold, because the hold itself is actually based on distance, not timing. So that's the entry. So once we do the entry procedure, it should transition to the hold, and we should stay in the hold as long as we need to. Got my fuel pumps on to transfer my fuel. Now, if I had to hold for a long time, normally what I would do is I would slow down to like a max endurance speed. So right now I'm burning 6.8 gallons per hour per side. If I got to stay in the hold for an extended period of time, I would just reduce my power and probably fly close to about 100 knots, indicate it, to reduce the fuel burn as much as possible. So I would set, let's try 50% and let the speed bleed off. And then you can see I've already down to 5 gallons per side per hour, so saving a lot of fuel. So if you really have to hold for an extended period of time, that's really what you want to do. So we'll finish the hold entry here, and then I'll check it with you as we transition to the hold itself. We're just coming up to the actual hold itself off the entry procedure over the waypoint bent here, and I've slowed down to 120 knots. I could probably slow down even more. So now you can see we're actually just in the hold portion now, and we're going to track outbound 4 miles on these legs. So it's going to continue in the hold until we leave the hold. And you can see the suspend is shows up lit up here. So if we want to leave the hold, we can hit suspend and it'll just depart the hold. So we're not ready to do that yet. So let's look at the fuel here. So we're at 42%. We're 120 now. So we could probably slow down a little bit more even. But if we look at the engine page and we go to the system page, it shows, or sorry, the lean page, it shows our fuel remaining. We're still transferring fuel from the aux tank. We got gallons remaining and gallons used so far. We have an endurance at this power setting of 347. So I could probably slow down a little bit more. So if I bring the power back to say 35%, you can see our endurance goes up quite a bit because our fuel burn goes down even more. So you want to bring it back to as slow a speed as possible with max endurance speed. I'm not sure what the best speed would be on this airplane, probably closer to 90 knots even. And then your fuel burn will be as low as possible, especially if you have an extended period of time. You can see how much your endurance goes up by reducing that power. So now ATC would ask us what our intentions are, and we would say, okay, well, we want to try another approach. We got lots of gas. We want to maybe try this approach again via the closest fix would be iHub here. So we would request from ATC maybe in a few minutes or when able to do the RNAV 33 via the iHub transition. So we can get that ready to go. So if I go to procedure here and we cursor down to, I don't want an activated approach because it'll activate the same approach we just had, which would be via Galaxy there. So I'll select the approach and we want the RNAV 33 again, but this time we want it by the iHub transition. And the barrel will stay the same, and we can see iHub, Galaxy, so that's all looking good. And now we're just ready to activate it. So that's another way to get out of the hold. So we're flying the hold procedure, and once we get turned back, actually we can do it anytime in the hold. So let's say we're ready to go and ATC says, okay, you're cleared for the maintain 2,000 feet direct iHub, you're cleared for the RNAV 33 GPS approach via iHub transition. So now if we just activate that, there you go. Gets rid of the hold, goes direct to iHub, and then we're now going to continue in on the approach. And it's the same approach. I'm not going to go through the whole approach again. Our aux fuel's empty, so we can shut off those. So now you can see we're direct to iHub, and we're just going to do the iHub transition. So we're coming from bent, we're going direct to iHub, and then we're just going to do the transition, no procedure turn at 2,000 feet, and then just go inbound from Galaxy and shoot the approach exactly the same way we did last time. So that's it. I'm not going to do that again in the video. I think I'll just end it right here. So I just wanted to go over all these new features on the NXi. They've made a lot more improvements, and sim update has been really good this time. I haven't had any issues. Things are running really smooth. All the mods are working really well. So it's been a great update, and the new features on the NXi make another nice improvement to the G1000 suite. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe to the channel and sign up for notifications, and you'll see more videos like this and my Around the World series in the Diamond DA62. Our next flight's going to be up the coast of Vietnam from Da Nang, probably up to Macau or Hong Kong. So it should be a beautiful flight, just waiting for some good weather to do that. If you like this content, make sure you hit the like button. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the video today. Lots of great new features in the sim. Finally a sim update that didn't break things, so it's great to see. And we'll see you next time on the Bandit Flight Simmer channel. Thanks again for joining me, and we'll see you. Bandit out.